30-year-old women aren't competing with other 30-year-old women for partners. They're competing with 18 to 35-year-old women for partners. And so all things considered, if you're 30 and you're looking for a mate and you want children, you're putting an awful lot of pressure one way or another on your 30-year-old male target, because his option is to find a 25-year-old woman who, all things being equal, is of the same value as you are, except that you're 30, and that means his time frame is now shortened in a manner that wouldn't be the case if he married someone younger. Plus, women tend to prefer men who are slightly older than them. Well, not exactly slightly, it's actually 4 years is the average internationally. And so the optimal target for a 25-year-old woman is a 29-year-old man. And so it's rude to point such things out, but mate selection is a very difficult problem. And it's also exacerbated by the fact that this is also a terrible thing, is that because of this hypergamous tendency of women, as women are, I knew a lot of very successful young women who worked in the legal field, and they were often stars in their firms, extremely able people. And generally they were very vivacious, attractive, intelligent, educated, and intimidating as hell to men, and not that interested in someone who didn't have the same ability and status they did, which was almost no one. So then they're 30, they're extremely choosy, and you could say they have a right to be, but the problem is, well, yeah, you're 30 and you're extremely choosy, and your pool of available candidates has basically shrunk to none. Because first of all, a lot of men are already snapped up by the time they're 30. So there's that reduction right off the bat. And then if you're going to reject, women rate 80% of men on dating sites as below average in attractiveness. And that's just the baseline, right? For the women who are high status and high attractive, let's say, very able on the career front, and the men they're going to regard as acceptable, that's a vanishingly small proportion of men. So that's part of the reason why they, what would you say, select themselves out of the mating market. That's brutal, man. It's brutal. And I watched women struggle with that like mad, and certainly had no shortage of sympathy for them. But the mere fact that you're sympathetic to someone doesn't mean that the brute reality that confronts them has been altered in any manner whatsoever. If you're reasonably attractive, you'll be able to try out 5 people. That's it. That's what you've got. You know, because it takes a while to find someone, and then it takes a while to get to know them. And finding them and getting to know them, that's probably something approximating 1 to 2 years. And if you do that 5 times, that's 10 years, and that's your fertility window. And so you think you have time, but that's a delusion. And you think the right person will come around. Well, first of all, that's a delusion to begin with, because you build a relationship, you don't find one. Now, you should have some sense when you pick your partner, to the degree that you have the luxury to have some sense. But the notion that the person right for you will come along at the right time, that's just not the case. That isn't how things work at all. And if you know that even if you're very attractive, that the list of true candidates is probably 5. And for some people, it's 1 or 0. And so it's hard, because when you're 17 or 16, especially if you're attractive, and I would say this is especially true if you're an attractive young woman, you have no shortage, generally speaking, of people who are interested in you. And it looks like that's sort of a landscape of plenty. But that doesn't mitigate against the fact that it still takes a long time to get to know people and to find the right person. Now, men have it a bit easier on that front, I would say, because like I had one friend who didn't have a child till he was 55. You know, that can always be the case for men. And so the pressure isn't on in the same way. But even with men, like had I married my wife earlier, we would have had more kids, you know, and that didn't happen. So, and we got married comparatively early for our social class, say, and educational background.